Hey everyone, I just wanted to add a follow-up tutorial video on timing. So first off, let's go through a few things that we learned in class. First off, what I did is I created a variable. In this case, I'm just going to call it millisecond, and I made it equal to millis. Now, if we console log this, what we will get is an updating number that is the amount of time in milliseconds since the sketch has started. So, oops, let's go ahead and see what happens here. Great, this is to be expected. As we can see here, we're getting a floating point number back. This is great. We can do a lot with this. For the sake of this sketch, I'm actually going to make millisecond something that is declared globally as opposed to locally inside of draw. So what I'm going to say is let millisecond over here. I can put a semicolon if I want. I don't have to. And now I can just get rid of this let. I've declared it here, and now I am just updating it in draw. Every frame, it updates the value of millisecond, our variable, to the output of this function, which is giving us the time since the beginning of the sketch. Great. So we can use this in a few ways. Let's try and use it first in a very simple way where we can say if millisecond is greater than 1000. And what we're really saying here is if 1 second has elapsed since the beginning of my sketch, I want to go ahead and create an ellipse. And I'll say I want it to be at 200, 200, and let's just make it 50 in diameter. Let's see what happens. 1, perfect. Timing works out great. I could also do something like, say, X position plus equals 1. I'm going to go ahead and declare that globally as well. I'm going to say let X position equal 0. Great. I can then go ahead under here and say ellipse. I want the X position to be the X position variable that we've just created. I want it to be at 200, and we can also just give it a radius of 50. So take a moment, pause, and consider what would happen when I pressed play. So what's going to happen, let's go through this line by line. I have my millisecond variable, I have my X position variable. I'm saying if 1 second has elapsed in the sketch, I want to continuously increment X position. So after 1 second elapses, X position will continuously be incremented until it moves off of the screen. Perfect. This is exactly what we want. Now, let's say, for instance, I wanted to have a particular fixed duration. So I could say if millisecond is greater than 1000 and millisecond is less than 3000, let's just say less than 2000, then I want to have my X position increment by 1. So ask yourself again, what's going to happen? We know that if the amount of time that has elapsed in our sketch is over 1000, and if the time in our sketch is under 2 seconds, this will be incremented. So there's only a 1 second moment where the value is incremented, and then it should stop. Perfect. Okay, we're doing pretty well here. Let's go ahead and change some of these values into variables. And I think this is where it got a little confusing in class. I'm going to go ahead and say let start time equal 1000. And I'm just going to say start time over here. And in this case, let's go ahead and say add another variable called duration. And this will be the duration of how long this period is going to be. And I'm going to say, and if millisecond is under start time plus duration. And numerically, these two are identical to what we just had. So the exact same thing should happen if we go ahead and press play. We have 1, 1, perfect. If the amount of time that has elapsed in the sketch is less than 1,000, and the amount of time that has elapsed in the sketch is less than 1,000 plus 1,000, then it works out. So it gets past 1 second here. This is true. And for 1 second there, it becomes true as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do something a little tricky here. I'm going to bring in that function that we were using in class, key pressed. And what I am going to do is I am going to say if key pressed, and that's essentially what this entire function is saying. It's one of those custom P5 functions that triggers when any key is pressed on my keyboard. The caveat here is I need to make sure that my canvas is clicked on before I start pressing keys. Otherwise, it will often restart my sketch. So in this one, I'm going to say start time equals millis. So what's gonna happen here? My sketch starts, 1 second has elapsed, it's gotten to 2 seconds, it has stopped. If I press a key, start time will be turned into millis. And let's go ahead and just restart this sketch and we'll actually see what console.log milli is. Great. So 1 second, it starts moving, gets to 2 seconds, it stops moving. Perfect. So if I went ahead and I pressed a button right now, start time would be, let's just say 17,000. And if millisecond is greater than that, and millisecond is less than 17,000 plus 1, do something else. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to press my spacebar right now. It moves for 1 second, it stops. It moves for 1 second, it stops. It moves for 1 second, it stops. The reason that this is working is because we have said, hey, if millisecond is greater than start time, and remember, we've just set start time to millis, so at this point, is millisecond greater than start time? It will be because we're updating it again. This gets updated once when we press the key down. This gets updated every frame. So I re-update this to 17,000. Immediately this becomes 17,001, so this part is true. Simultaneously, we have set this up, this start time, which is 17,000 plus this duration of 1,000, so that it is now collectively 18,000. So by pressing the key down, we actually give 1 more second where this condition is true. Sorry? This is pretty useful. So hopefully this tutorial will be a good way to unpack some of the things that we talked about in class. I'll add another one soon.